The Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards, every Thursday at 6:15 on Goliath Radio. Gwen Azama-Edwards, retired city clerk, former city commissioner, City of Daytona Beach. The Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards on Goliath Radio.
She's my surprise. We're not on. Jennifer Adams. She is the president of Hushpuppyhaven.
Oh, she was just,
Man, you've been sitting much too long, much too long. Welcome, 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 welcome to Truth, a radio program designed. It's not your phone, sorry.
no, yeah, your phone, yeah.
A radio program designed with you in mind, a program whose sole purpose is to empower you, our listeners, for information leads to knowledge, and knowledge is power. And as always, we want to empower you to take control of your life, those things that impact you, your family, and your community. As always, too, we want you to go to the website, www.gwen-truth.com, so you can access those resource listings that will give you the information you need to be powerful. Yes, yes, yes. Also go there so you can take part in the new poll that we have going, and that new poll is asking about gambling. Yes, gambling.
After this one second.
Wow.
It's not there, is it? Okay. You're gonna go to
Okay.
You're gonna go to
That
7:15?
new, that new query, probably a little bit, because we're getting started a little bit.
Yeah, that's okay.
That new query is asking you this. It says that the Florida legislature seems intent on bringing more funds into the state coffers through the lure of, and I say lure because things are not always as they seem in terms of gambling and the benefits thereof. Through the lure of expanded gambling in the state. Do you agree with expanded gambling in the state of Florida? Yes or no? Yes or no? And, you know, you read the pros and cons in terms of gambling. You read the pros and cons in terms of what's happening in places where they have it, where it's so great right in the immediate area, but you go a few miles out from that and you see the devastation that is actually caused by gambling. And then you understand why there are some people who say that is not the direction that Florida should be going. Not in terms of expanding it into other areas. We already have gambling to a certain degree. We gamble to get our education funds with the lottery. Of course, that education part of it was thrown in to allow the lottery to take place. So we know that it wasn't created for education. That's a whole nother subject. Anyway, as has been stated, I'm Gwen Azama-Edwards, former city commissioner, retired city clerk, City of Daytona Beach, current president and CEO of AE Enterprises, Inc., a consulting firm on politics and ethics. Please go to the website so that you can chime in on gambling, the gambling question, okay? Now, I also want to do just one, two little shout outs, two little informational sharing things, okay? Those of you who live in Holly Hill, Orange City, Daytona Beach Shores, DeBerry, and Lake Helen, you have an election on Tuesday, November the 8th. Tuesday, November 8th, and I believe they have early voting, which is like 8 days out from that, counting 8 days or 7 days out from that, where you can actually go to the locations that have been set up for early voting. You can also, as always, do your absentee balloting as well, right up to about a week before the election, at least 5 days before the election. So you have 3 major ways of voting. So all of you who live in those areas, please, 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 please vote. You know, we've had some dismal election turnouts in terms of people voting and the percentage being less than 10%. Now that's horrible. Guys, that's horrible. Come on, we can do better than that. So all of you guys over there in DeBerry, Holly Hill is right near next to us, but Holly Hill, Orange City, my hometown, Daytona Beach Shores, DeBerry, and Lake Helen. Shores House done, okay? Let's have a much higher turnout. You're voting for, amendments to your charter, which is your document for your city or your township. And you're voting on the terms of office for your elected officials. In Orange City, they're actually voting for the mayor, who will become the next mayor of that city. So please turn out and please vote. And we know that all of the voting after that point will take place in 2012 with the primary election August 12th, 2012, and then other elections to follow. Also, my final announcement is, and I believe I shared this with you before, but let me just say this, that on Monday, November the 7th, reception starts at 5:30, program begins at 6 p.m. There's a light dinner to be served in African American, or African actually, gourmet hors d'oeuvres that will be available in the reception area of the Performing Arts Center at Bethune-Cookman University. So, and this is being sponsored by Vitas Innovative Hospice Care. So that's Monday, November 7th. Reception starts at 5:30 with that light dinner of hors d'oeuvres, and the program starts at 6. And what is the program? The program, one of the keynote speakers is Tutu's daughter, and we all are familiar with him. But I don't want to miss the name, but Naomi Tutu will be here, and she's a hospice and human rights advocate, and also the daughter of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And there will also be a Dr. Richard Payne, who is a professor of medicine, divinity at the Duke Institute on Care at the End of Life. So please come in. And they're entitling this in our neighborhoods and across sub-Saharan Africa. And this has to do with, of course, fighting HIV/AIDS in Volusia, Flagler, and sub-Saharan Africa. So please come out. And the cost of the tickets, I believe, is $30. And so you do want to let them know that you are interested in coming. So the donation and ticket information is, number is 366-6100, 366-6100. And a major person who's involved in this is Pastor John Long of Tubman King Community Church. Okay, now my guest, one is very nervous, and we told her that she doesn't have anything to worry about because she's going to enjoy this totally. But you all know, well, hopefully you know. If you don't know, let's just share with you that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we also know that we've had throughout this month as well, breast cancer awareness as well going on. You know, that's the pink. Domestic Violence Awareness is also this month, and your color is purple, Cheryl.
That's
and
correct.
I was going to, let me make sure I get you on here. I was going to ask you, and I should have asked you really before we started, but I know you're always ready, just like me. But why is domestic violence this month the same month as, and you know, they probably don't even have anything to do with each other, but the same month as cancer awareness or breast cancer awareness, and why the color purple?
Breast Cancer Awareness Month actually started in the early 1980s or the mid-1980s, and it was originally started the first week of October to be a day of unity, to bring advocates together throughout the United States who worked very hard to obviously keep victims safe, but also to celebrate those they had saved, and to mourn those whose lives had been taken because of domestic violence. In the early 1990s, it's when the government recognized the need to do more than just a day of unity and made October Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I truthfully, Gwen, I'm not going to make up a reason for telling you why purple is the color. I am not sure. And I'll investigate that for you, though, and get back with you on that.
All right, you are so good and always She is so knowledgeable, I tell you, that's why I can call on her without telling her what the heck I'm trying to do. But, you know, I was just wondering, I said, you know, why do they have both things, you know, in that month?
And they had actually thought about changing it on the national level. They had looked at other months, and there was a lot of debate on whether or not to do so, and they decided to keep it in October.
All
Because
right.
that's when it started, and they didn't want to take away the history.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm not, now I'm gonna switch to our, actually recording the show using the other camera. Okay. Why should we care about domestic violence?
We should care about domestic violence because domestic violence does not pick one individual. It has no boundaries. Domestic violence could be happening to your mother, to your sister, to your coworker, to your friends, to your neighbors. There's absolutely no boundaries when it comes to family violence. 1 out of 4 women will experience domestic violence at some time in her life. So the need for us to take a look at this subject, which kills 3 people every day, an average of 3 people every day in the United States, is very important. And not only is it very important because obviously we don't want anybody to be hurt or to die, but I think we as a society need to look at ending violence not only on the streets but in our homes. And we've become a very violent society, and I think it's something we need to tackle and take a look at.
And you know, one of the things that it's just like with the cancer awareness, people don't think of men when they think of people of domestic violence. They usually just think of women, but there are also a few men who get.
We have a male in our shelter right now with children. So yes, the numbers are less, and nationally it's 78% of those who are abused are female, and the other of course men. But I think those numbers might be even higher if more men reported it. The same reason that causes domestic violence, I think, well, some of the contributing factors to domestic violence, I think also contributed to men not reporting that. And that is that we expect men to be totally in control, powerful.
Macho.
Right, macho, and you know, nobody's going to hurt them. And so if they're experiencing it, I think they have even more shame than a female would have, or society would have a hard time understanding it more so than they would if a female was being abused. There's also a physical difference. As you know, men are built physically different than we are, muscular structure, etc. So if I, for instance, were to try and hurt my husband, he could just hold me back because he's so much stronger, he's bigger. So it's easier for a man to hurt a woman than a woman to hurt a man. So that's just some food for thought.
Okay. Now, in terms of stats for Volusia County,
Mm-hmm.
what are we looking at? Because you had a speaker at your annual luncheon, and the speaker who was there was talking about the fact that violence or crime has gone down in several areas, but the one area, major area where it has not gone down is domestic abuse, domestic violence, and domestic assault. That it really has gone up, and she gave a really high percentage of increase, and I believe she was talking about Florida.
Yes, she was, and I didn't write down that stat, Gwen. I can look it up here.
But I know it was either 20 to 30%,
It's
somewhere
quite
there.
high. I know that we have experienced a 40% increase in the crisis calls that we have received versus 2 years ago. 40%. We just ended our annual fiscal year, September 30th. We sheltered over 120 more individuals than we did last year. We have individuals sleeping in every corner of our shelter right now, literally. We're using our spiritual meditation room and setting up cots and sleeping bags in there. One night we put people in our children's center just to find a place for them to sleep. So it is really a difficult situation right now, but we continue to do all we can to provide individuals who fear for their safety, have no place else to stay, with safe, confidential shelter.
And we know they always say that this is generally the case when the economy is bad, then you have an increase in domestic abuse, domestic violence. Is that the case, and is that the only thing that you can point to? Because surely, surely it's just not the economy that's causing this kind of an increase.
I don't know if it's exactly just the economy, but you are correct, and people do say that's a cause. It's more of a factor, if you ask me. The more stress there is in a home, the better potential for somebody who is already violent,
Right.
who's already violent, to become
Mhm.
more violent.
Mhm.
Because you do not find individuals who are, just because they're unemployed, abusing their loved one. It just doesn't work like that. You already have to have the belief that it's okay to hurt somebody, and utilize power and control tactics to try to have some control in your home. But I do feel like that we have seen an increase because it seems to correlate right with the economy. But I think what else is happening is, in addition to the economy going down, we have a reduction in services to offer these families. If you think about it, it is a trickle-down effect for us too. If there's no jobs and you reduce some of the social services available to help the families, and by that I mean affordable housing, affordable childcare, all those things make it harder for individuals to do it on their own. They might be seeking out our help, where before they could have went to another agency for housing assistance,
Right.
for assistance with getting a job, etc. So I think there's a lot of factors that have come into play, but hopefully it's also people are hearing more about our agency through the community education efforts that we have out there, and know that they can come into our shelter or receive our outreach services. So I'm hoping it's kind of twofold.
And your agency, just like all the other agencies, I'm sure you must be suffering from some reduction in funding. And while the need is going up, you know, the funding level in terms of what people are actually giving is going down. And this is a crucial group. Of course, you know, all the agencies will say that they all meet a real basic need in terms of helping people who are in need. But this is a group that, in many ways, they have nowhere else to turn and nowhere else to go.
Well, we save lives. Okay, if they stay home, they can die. We
Mhm.
read that in the paper. We know the
Oh,
results
yes.
of
Oh,
family
yes.
violence.
Mm.
We have the lady over in Deltona who, you know, was killed in Orlando or Sanford, but she left 4 children behind. The other one was just the baby, the young 2-year-old child too, and that's just in the last month. So our agency saves lives, and without a safe place for them to stay, the results can be homicide. So not that the other agencies are not just important, because our families need those agencies too. When they come to our shelter and they do want to start all over, if we don't have affordable housing, if we don't have affordable daycare, if we don't have someone to assist them with their prescriptions, with transportation, it makes it harder for us to do our job too. So all the other services are just as important, but you're right, we save lives.
Now, I know, and you may or may not want to talk about this, but I know you did send out information to the county council as a result of a recent funding issue. It was a change in the way, the formula that they used in actually awarding funding to certain agencies, and you had some concern because some of the undergirding services that are needed in the community to help those who come to you were really being cut. And as a result, you were trying to ensure that the county council and others understood what impact that cut in funding based on that new formula was going to have. Do you want to just spend just a few minutes to...
Yeah, and the whole process was one that was a big eye-opener for me, very informative as far as me learning the new process. The county switched from a grant application process to an RFP process. There was the RFP our agency fell into had a competitor, a competing RFP, and the Children and Family Advisory Board was asked to grade the RFPs, basically, to score them, and they scored the other RFP higher than ours. We were very fortunate that Reggie Williams, who is the administrator for DCF, and Mark Jones, who is the CEO for Community Partnership for Children, right, stood up and said, wait a minute, there are some critical needs that if you eliminate not only our funding, but it was Children's Home Society, House Next Door, Children's Advocacy Center, Mental Health Association, Pay Center for Girls, and I might be missing one, I hope not, that were going to lose these services. It was going to cause a devastating effect on our community. And our county council stepped up to the plate and said, wait a minute, we need to do something here, and did award some additional money to cover the critical services. For our agency, that we were in a different RFP for our emergency shelter. In fact, our agency is the lead agency for that. But the critical services would have been eliminating our children's services in our shelter, which would have stopped all child assessments, groups for them, somebody to work with the child witness of domestic violence, and would have eliminated some of the legal services to our victims. So they stepped up to the plate and did allow us some additional funding, but we still took a $70,000 cut.
Wow.
$70,000. And that's a lot for a nonprofit agency.
That's not chump change.
Not at all, especially when you need to throw into the fact that our state funding, we have not seen an increase, not one penny in probably 5 years. United Way funding continues to go down. And of course, donations are harder to obtain because everybody is struggling. So, but we are managing, and the emergency shelter will still be there no matter what.
And that's what's important for those who have needed the services. Don't worry about whether there's any money to fund the services or whatever. What Cheryl is saying is that they will be there for you.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you need them, if you find yourself in need, don't worry about, their funding and how they're going to make it. Just understand the fact that they will be there for you, and that all you have to do is make that contact. And we would say it again, but how would someone contact you who find themselves in need? 1-800-500-1119. Call us 24 hours a day, every day of the year. We are there. Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, you name it, we are there. Our local hotline number is 255-2102. You can also, of course, call the statewide hotline number, 1-800-500-1119. And for a lot of these women, and we say sometimes men, but these women, and sometimes they have children with them, and many times, you guys want to see what you can gather together before you leave, when you need to be just getting the heck out of the house, You need to know that they have a lot of what you need there, in terms of your clothes, in terms of clothes for your children, in terms of a lot of things to help you get started again. In fact, I have to say that our sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Gamma Mu Omega chapter, our social services and human resources committee actually pulled together a lot of donations, and we made that presentation to Cheryl at the beginning of our recent meeting on October 22nd, and there were like oodles and oodles of stuff, from baby stuff to pots and pans, and you name it, everything possible from that shelter wish list we provided. And we were so happy to be able to do that, and I was so happy that all of our members just came through, as well as the undergrad chapter, to make that possible. So that's something that we do. It's something that you listeners can do as well, because there is a shelter wish list that you can get. Is it online?
Yes, it is. You can go to our website, which is www.domesticabusecouncil.com, or just Google Domestic Abuse Council in Daytona Beach. I'm sure it'll give you a link to us, and it has our wish list there, has ideas to volunteer opportunities. We have a thrift store that we could really use some donations for. Last week a car drove through our store, but we're up and running. But it did take out a lot of our houseware sections, so donations of houseware sections or items would be wonderful to help us replenish those that were lost in the accident.
Awesome. And as we talk about volunteering and volunteer opportunities, there is a new program that has just started to help those who come into the domestic abuse shelter. And they have pets with them. And there's a young lady who really had this idea, this thing that was kind of given to her as a passion, as a dream, and as just a way of helping others. And what she did was take this idea and make it, you know, something even bigger, even better. And so what they're able to do now is do provide shelter for the pets of those that are in the shelter. And the young lady who's going to talk to us about that is Jennifer Adams. Now her professional job is with NASCAR, but this is something that she just personally felt a need to do. And if you would share, Jennifer, kind of the genesis of what actually started or gave you this idea.
Thank you, Gwen. Like Cheryl said, there's a lot of victims of domestic abuse. It's not just the women and the men, but the children, and a lot of people don't think about the pets.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of women won't leave their homes because there's nowhere to take their pet. And I came across a lot of stories of pets being killed in domestic abuse situations. So I just came up with the idea that it would be great if we could have a program in Daytona Beach where people would know their pets are safe while they're getting the help they need and until they're able to get back on their own again and be reunited with their pets.
Mm-hmm. And see, these are the types of things that you know, people with great hearts do. Instead of sitting around thinking about themselves and how great life is, you know, you read some story that tells you about, as Jennifer did, she was reading a story in the newspaper, as she was sharing with me earlier, and she read about the lady who was being domestically abused, and she wanted to leave the house, but what her husband did was, and who was her spouse, he, you know, he killed a pet, and that was his way of getting back at her. And that is one of the things that, as you look at the symptoms and things, where you can tell that there is domestic abuse, and that's somebody where you need to just get the heck out of the house, that's what they will do. They will either injure the pet or they will kill the pet. And so she had this idea that this would be something great to do. And then from that idea, you're saying you now have a board of directors, and you now have some volunteers that will actually be foster. You know, we think of foster parents for children. Well, these are foster, what do we call them? Foster what for?
Foster parents.
Foster parents, okay.
That's what we call them.
Or almost like a rescue volunteer, a
Yeah,
little bit, because
yeah.
they're rescuing the pet too from the abuse. Because
Yeah.
when they first started this, we had a victim in our shelter whose pet was killed. She left, couldn't bring it to the shelter, and he killed her dog.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they rescue them, they save them.
And our main goal is for the pet and the survivor or victim to be reunited at the end. We do think of ourselves as a rescue, as we are rescuing a pet, but our goal is for them to be reunited at the end, and we will keep them as long as we need to, a week, a month, 6 months, and we'll take any pet.
And right now, you say you have a board of directors, you have a handful of foster parents for these pets, but you need more.
I don't think you could have enough fosters. We don't have an actual facility that we work out of, so we rely solely on a core group of fosters, and it's really important. I don't think you could have enough. We want to be able to take in and help as many pets as we can, and the more fosters we get, the more pets we can save.
Now, mention that list of pets that you're willing to take again.
We've kind of had the open mind that we would take anything from a fish to a bird, snake, iguana, cat,
A horse,
dog,
they said a horse.
potbelly pig, because we don't know what kind of pets these families have, and we don't want to say no.
And many times, and we see this time and time again, where the pets really are like a member of the family.
Exactly.
So they don't want to, and it's difficult for them even, it's really difficult for them during this time of where they're removing themselves from what is an unsafe situation, but in many ways, that's home.
Right.
It could be unsafe, but it's home. And then the thing that you have with you that is from home, that's a reminder of the good part of home, you know, you end up then having to put it in a shelter, and whether it's a male or a female pet. And, you know, then you're separated from them, because for right now, you actually have them put in the foster home, and you're saying that you don't really encourage visits right now, but you
Not
guys
right
are gonna
now,
try to
but-
set up something
Yes, we were
later.
talking while we were waiting to come on your show about maybe setting up, we have an old laundry room at our facility, if we could renovate that and turn it
Mhm.
into almost like a visiting room. So then fence off an area where they could be outside and run their dogs, etc. So we'll see what we can arrange. And this is a brand new, they just have their first puppy, fostering their
Right.
first puppy, so this is brand new. We had hoped to start November 1st, and we got the call, and I said, let's call Jennifer and see if they can help us out, because we didn't want to turn the person away.
Right, and what ends up happening from well, Jennifer, tell us the process. The individuals who are being, violently abused or whatever, they come to the shelter, the Domestic Abuse Council,
Correct.
and then what happens if they
Well-
have a pet with them?
I believe it starts out with actually the phone call.
Right, to be the crisis
Right,
call.
the crisis call, where actually that's where a lot of the question is, do you take pets? Whereas
Mhm.
before it was no, we can't, now it is yes, we can. So the person will come to the shelter, and then we get the call to come pick up the pet. And then we would transport the pet to the foster, we would get it any vet care if it needs it. We cover all costs, there's no cost to the foster. We
Awesome.
cover everything, so anything it needs, if it needs vaccines, if it was abused and it needs treatment, we're gonna cover that. We will pick it up, bring it back, transport it to the vet if it needs it,
And that's why they need donations
yes.
too, because they're feeding them, giving them shots,
Mhm.
getting them veterinarian care, and not only monetary, but I mean professional
Mhm.
volunteers, a veterinarian who can
Yes.
help us out by examining the
And
pet.
you said that you have at least one or two that
Mhm.
have volunteered their services actually.
They have agreed to. We haven't. They've
You
used
haven't had
one.
to use.
We
you-
haven't
you
had
have
to use
the-
yet because we're just getting
Yeah,
started.
for the new puppy is what, 4 weeks, you said?
If that.
Yeah, between 3 and 4 weeks, and she's being
Oh.
very well taken care of. She is actually with someone who has experience with taking care of animals, so she's on puppy formula, and she's being loved on, and she's
Mhm.
growing every day, and we've already become quite attached to her. So
Aw.
we want to make sure that she gets big and healthy and can be reunited with her mom.
And one of the things you were saying too, which is why it's just so key and important, I think, is that you set up the visitation, because even though animals, they get attached to their family, and probably stay attached in some form or fashion, but after a while they could also gain an attachment to the foster parent if they're there for a long period of time.
That's true, and
Yeah.
it's stressful for animals. I mean, it's stressful for people to go through those situations, but it's
Mhm.
also very stressful for the animal who now is in a new home. There may be other pets there it has to become accustomed to.
Right.
And so we just want to make them as comfortable as possible, and let them know they're loved and will be taken care of.
And it's no different from where a foster parent that had a child that they take into their home and they get attached, and or that parent that's separated from them temporarily, they too have this sense of loss, and they really want to have some kind of visitation, and not just a small one, and sometimes they start out with just once a week, and then they grow it to 2 times a week or whatever. So those are things that you will be working out, but this has been a fledgling, we can call it a fledgling organization, with a great passion for animals, of individuals who have been abused, and they have need of volunteers. That's what we want to stress. They do need volunteers, volunteer foster parents.
And they have a website too. They
We
already
do.
have a website set up, so individuals could find out more about this by going to their
Okay.
website.
What is that website address?
The website is www.hushpuppyhaven.org. We also have a Facebook page up that we constantly are posting what events we're going to be doing and any kind of updates that are going on.
So do you have fundraising events? Or will you be having any?
We did the home show at the Ocean Center last weekend. Our next event is this Saturday at the Port Orange Dog Park, the Bark in the Park event. And then after that, the next one will be November 12th. We'll be out at the Cubs Stadium at the Chili Cook-Off.
Okay, so guys, you have at least 3 upcoming opportunities to get here, to make yourself available, make yourself known to this organization, Hushpuppyhaven. Is it Hush Puppies or Hushpuppyhaven? Hushpuppyhaven, okay. And again, it's hushpuppyhaven.com. That is the website. And again, they need volunteers. They need contributions, because if you have an animal, you have a pet, you know that it takes a little something for you to keep them fed, to do the things that are necessary in keeping them healthy. So they need help in order to do this. And then this, as I said, this is something that's birthed out of the heart of Jennifer. And now Jennifer has others with that equally shared vision and heart who want to also help these individuals who find themselves in a situation not of their own making and for whatever reason, they want to protect, as well as themselves, they also want to protect their pets. And this is just a great opportunity to do this, and it's just such a neat idea.
And it's so needed, Gwen. 25 to probably 40% of the individuals who want to come into the shelter cannot, because we had no place for their pets.
Wow.
So our already packed shelter, I think, is going to get a little busier, but that's okay. That is okay.
And Cheryl, when they were told, no, we don't take the pets, we don't have anything we can do for them, did they then not come?
Some didn't come. Some we would find pets in the car in the parking lot, which we know in Florida is not good and not safe for their pets. They would try to sneak them in. We had found some inside the facility. Or yes, some did not come. You know, or they tried to make arrangements. But you know that costs money to pay for to board your pet. The Humane Society would shelter them for a week for us and then put them up for adoption. And so that wasn't an opportunity that many, victims who entered our shelter wanted to do, because within 1 week, they knew that they could lose their pet.
A scary situation, really. And, we're talking about the adult side of it, but when you think about the children who now find themselves separated and they see this thing that's going on between their parents and now to that pet that they had that they just cherished, to now, have either that pet being harmed in some way or in harm's way, and then separating, from it. As great a service as it still is difficult to go. Now you're away from your one of your parents, and you don't know when you're going to see them again. But you're also separated from this pet that you love, which is your heart. And that impacts the young people a great deal. So the visitation thing is going to be super.
I think so, and if there's anybody out there has ideas or can help us get that fixed up, we'd love it. So a contractor or somebody, I think it just needs to be cleaned up and painted, so that'd be wonderful.
Okay, and I know we got somebody out there that knows somebody that can do that. So you guys be sure to get in touch with Cheryl. And Cheryl, give them your information again.
You can call the crisis line. They will give you my number, and the crisis line again is 1-800-500-1119 or 255-2102.
And Jennifer, give them your information again before we get into it, another part of the subject here.
Okay, our website is www.hushpuppyhaven.org. We are also on Facebook, and our main information phone number is 386-320-3413.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And your board of directors, are these just friends of yours, or are they people who have kind of a similar passion?
It's both, really. Basically, the two people that started this were myself and a very close friend of mine, Nancy Green, who worked with me at NASCAR, and she's my treasurer. And I tell her all the time, remember the day I came to you at work and said, I have this great idea, and she almost started crying, and I love her for that. She's a great support. We also have an attorney at DCF on our board. We have somebody that works with victim advocates. We have someone who's excellent at PR, and we have someone who also is a former employee from the Domestic Abuse Council. So we've got a little bit of everything, a great support. We're all huge animal lovers. And I think we're going to make a big difference, because when nobody should have to make a choice.
Right.
And we're hopefully making that choice to get out of that situation a little easier.
You're certainly doing a great service, and that goes without saying. And I agree with you that no one should have to make a choice in any kind of a difficult situation like that. But it's just as Cheryl is saying, their program is saving lives, you're also saving lives in what
Right.
you're doing. And they just happen to be pets. Okay.
And
praise
saving
God.
them too, you know, I mean, some of the abuse that happens to animals, and I'm not gonna go into it, but I've heard it over the years of being with our agency, and it's horrific.
Mhm.
It's downright horrific, because they will do awful things to the pets to try to get even with the victim.
Right, right. Oh,
They
that
really
is-
are the silent
Yeah.
victims, so we're their voice now, so.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, Cheryl, and let me go ahead and make the announcement before we get into this. You're listening to Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards, and this is on Goliath Radio, WLE 1380 AM on your radio dial in Ormond Beach, Florida. And my guest, of course, are Cheryl Fuller, who is the, and I always call you the executive director. That's correct, right?
I'm the CEO,
CEO.
but that's
See?
okay.
Okay, she is the CEO at the Domestic Abuse Council and a very good friend, I will also add. And also Jennifer Adams, who is with NASCAR, but her thing, the reason she's here now is that she has Hushpuppy
Haven.
Hushpuppyhaven. You know, you think of Haven, then that's a safe place. Hushpuppyhaven.com, and they're helping those who come into the Domestic Abuse Council who have pets, and providing a safe haven for the pets, as Domestic Abuse Council is providing a safe haven for those who find themselves in need because of a domestic violence situation. What are, and I've always found that it's good to share with people some of the telltale signs of domestic abuse. And I know there's a wheel that you can look at in terms of that, but what are some basic telltale signs for people who, because there are women sometimes, and sometimes men, but we're basically the overwhelming numbers, you said, close to 80% of those that are abused are women. But there are some telltale signs that where they can tell even before they're in a permanent relationship with this person, or even to the point where you've married this person, you know. And I don't know why it is that people always think that once they get married, they get better, because that is not the case. Once you get married, I mean, the worst really will come out, because then some people who are not right, we'll say not right, I'm pointing to my head, you know, they then think they own you and that you're their property because of a contract. Because, and I'm not speaking against marriage, because I'm all for marriage, but you need to know and have the right relationship with an individual before you decide that you're going to marry them. You need to really have a good feel for them. And there are some things that you will see from people who are abusers that you can look at. And you know, sometimes these things might relate to something else, but for the most part, when you put them all together, yeah, you need to be very, very frightened, and you need to steer clear of that person. And you know, some of the incidents that we have seen, I say incidents, actually the murders, and where the people have been, there's been attempted murder, have been sometimes not even a spousal relationship, but it's a person that they've had a personal relationship with, where it was boyfriend, girlfriend, or even just consideration of dating, you know, not even to that point.
And the last two that I was referring to earlier, the murders that occurred recently here in Volusia County, the one girl that worked at Burger King over in Deltona had been separated with him from what, 6 months, had broken off the relationship, and he continued to stalk her and drive by her, and you know, that can be one of the most dangerous times, is when you actually leave the abusive individual. But there are some warning signs, Gwen, when you're just dating, and a lot of that is they're kind of wanting a quick involvement and wanting to take it to the second step before you're ready. Like in a support group I led once, I said to the individuals there, how long had you known the individual before you were living with him or got married to him? It was all under 6 months. 6 months, and they're already living together or married. So there's this big rush for quick involvement. Some of the other warning signs are controlling who you see, where you go, how you dress. And that can be done in a nice way where you don't even realize it's abuse. For instance, I really love it when you don't wear makeup. oh, well, isn't that nice that they love me looking natural?
Yeah.
When really they're trying to tell you how to look.
Uh-huh.
I really like it when you keep your hair pulled back. I really like it when you dress in pants instead of a
Uh-huh.
skirt. Then it becomes, I told you I didn't want you wearing makeup, or I didn't want your hair like that,
Mhm.
etc. It can start with a shove, a push. And you think, well, you know, okay, all he did was shove me. No one should shove you. Nobody
Right,
should push
right.
you. Nobody should continue to tickle you if you tell them to stop and they continue to do it. Verbal put downs, you know, making fun of you in front of people. Those are some of the warning signs before it will escalate. Because it does start that way. It's not like the first time you go out with somebody, they punch you, give you a black eye, or break a bone, and most of us would never go out with them again.
Right, right.
So it does start out very subtly and will grow to become more severe and more frequent as time goes on.
And many times, these are people who are very insecure themselves.
Exactly.
And they take that insecurity out on someone who they feel is a weak individual.
Exactly.
And they're weakened by the fact that they love the person, or they think they love them.
Mhm.
And they want to please them, and they want to do what's right and make them feel okay, type thing. And really, if that person really is feeling insecure, or you have to keep telling them that they're great, they're wonderful, they look super, oh, you know, I just, you know, and isn't that kind of an offset, another thing too, where you've got to continually build them up and make them feel good.
Mhm.
I mean, that can get tiring after
No
a while,
kidding.
I would think. Jeez, I mean, my thing is, I even tell my husband sometimes, because he'll ask me, how was the sermon? I say, it was pretty good. Is that all? Just pretty good? Fortunately, he's got his mom who says, oh, that was super, that was great, that was awesome. I say, hey, when it's great and super, I tell you it's great and super. But when it's just average, okay, it was
You're
just
gonna be
average, you
honest.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, you should always want at least one person in your life that's going to be honest.
And you should have a partner where you can be honest without
Mhm.
fear of how they're going to react or fear that they're going to say they don't love you anymore. They should accept you for who you are.
Absolutely, because we're all imperfect creatures out here, just
That's
trying to
right.
get better and, you know, trying to enjoy life and all
That's
of that. Now, in addition to the warning signs, if you see that in a relationship, or you see that in a partner or a friend or a date or whatever, what should the person do? Because there are some things you can do that can actually aggravate it and move it to the next violent level.
And every situation is different. So we always hate to say do this, this or that, because the individual who is living with that person knows what might set them off.
Mhm.
I might suggest something that could set off their
Right, there are
partner.
some buttons that
Right.
you just
So
don't-
what we usually recommend someone do is call our crisis line. Talk to somebody who's been trained in the area of family violence and who can help you safety plan. There are things you can do to even remain in a home with a violent individual and still maintain some sense of safety. For instance, you could say to your neighbor, if my porch light is not on, will you call the police? If an argument occurs, get out of the kitchen if you're in there.
Mhm.
Weapons are in the
Right,
kitchen, knives,
right.
etc. Always be in a room where there's two exits. You never go into a bathroom. There's usually only one escape, and that way you could be in there. But back to what they should do or say, that's all up to them to be. Like I said, they know their partner better. If you think somebody is being abused,
Right,
the other side of it, if you have a loved one, a sister, a family member, a co-worker, a neighbor, never go up to somebody and say, are you a victim of domestic violence? We as a society think we have to have a bruise, a broken bone to be classified as a victim of domestic violence. Where domestic violence occurs or can include emotional abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, and of course physical abuse. And physical assaults can be anything from a shove or push to the extreme end of a burning, knife wounds, etc. So it can be any. So you would never want anybody to think they're not a victim of domestic violence and you ask them if they are. There's also a stigma. People don't like being labeled victims of domestic violence. Instead, you might say, I heard this radio show the other day, and they said 1 out of 4 individuals could be a victim of domestic violence. And some of the warning signs are they don't allow you to talk to your friends, and they don't allow you to
Or
go
family.
out, or family. And I feel like that might be happening. Are you safe in your home? You're not judging them. You're not saying get out or anything. You're just saying, are you safe in your home? And they say, well, I'm okay. Well, remember, I'm here if you need me. That's all you have to do. Don't pretend it's not happening. I was in leadership class Daytona 10 years ago, and one of our classmates showed up with a black eye. Nobody said anything to her. I waited until we were alone, and I just said her name, and I said, is everything okay at home? She